Welcome back to the Gab Street Podcast. We are on episode 34. Every single week, Wednesday morning, we are the number one podcast in Columbus for underground talent. We interview artists, creatives, podcasters, musicians, anybody that creates any addition to the Columbus culture or the Columbus economy. You can find them here. This is the best place to find the best people to listen to in Columbus. We have a co-host with us today from the Tack Tablecloths.
Yeah.
No, wait. No, that's your rival podcast, right?
Yeah, that's our rival. They're the ones who came in...
clutched fourth place.
Yeah,
right?
fourth place or whatever place for TV and film.
His name is Alex Johnson. He's from the Tacky Tablecloths podcast that is done by some of the guys over at Revolter Pictures. I love what they do over there. They talk about film and stuff, and it's a great time. So thank you for being with us as the co-host today. Our guests today are the wonderful Pre-Dead Boys. What's going on, guys?
Hello.
How's it going?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm here with some of the best podcasters in the city, so really glad to...
Exclusively on this side.
You have beer set up? Because... just looking at yourself. I don't know.
Why, thank you. So I'm going to do a quick shout out real quick. Somebody that has fostered a lot of inspiration in me and has really been a catalyst for everything I do. His name is Cole Baker, and I saw him yesterday at Cloud City. Just shout out to him because really I have a lot that I owe him to what I've been able to accomplish thus far. So thank you, Cole. I know you just started listening, so that's why I'm doing that. But
thanks, Cole.
Yes, everyone thank Cole.
Thanks,
Clap for Cole.
Cole.
Yes.
Boy, you really feel every year of 28 when I used to be hip and know all the cool places, and then you just said Cloud City, and I'm like, I don't know what that is.
I didn't know what that was till he told me either. It's...
I mean, this is coming out a bit after it happened, but Cloud City was at 400 West Rich in Franklinton. It was.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it was like that big artist complex building or whatever, and they had they had live music going. That was the primary thing, but then they had a podcast lounge. They had a Zen tent. They had food trucks lining up the street outside. They had VR going. They had a whole area for returning artists. So people that had gone to prison and came back and were artists and were
very cool.
That culture behind it. And that was super cool. I enjoyed talking to those people. So check out Cloud City next year if you missed it this year. It's a pretty good time. You might see me doing a live episode. So we'll see about that. But go ahead and check that out. But let's get right into the reason why we're here today. My guys, my first question is, do you have the LaCroix sponsorship yet?
No.
No?
LaCroix, how do I say this in a civil, friendly way? They are not responsive to our emails or phone calls or knocking on their door late at night. No. Yeah, I've heard nothing.
But you have contacted them? You've tried to?
We've tried.
Tweeted, emailed. I sent in a sponsor request, which I think is for if you're doing a cycling team and you want to be sponsored. Yeah, they're not doing well right now, I guess, as a company.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did hear about that. Yeah, they're kind of tanking a little bit.
Yeah, LaCroix used to have kind of a deadlock on the seltzer market and no competition.
Yeah.
And now there's Bubbly, there's Polar, there's all of these different seltzer waters are in.
White Claw.
I saw there's a White Claw shortage
Yes.
now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They can't make enough of it?
They literally cannot make enough to meet up with demand, and I can believe it because at one of my jobs we have rave kind of things that go on, and I don't want to say their name on air. And when people come in, because it's a BYOB thing, they've always just got stacks of Claw, and I'm just I didn't know this stuff was that popular.
Yeah.
We had a guy come into Dueling Axes with holsters on his hips with a White Claw in each.
That is corny.
And he would like whip them out, flip them around, pop both tabs, and then take a drink and then put them back.
That is very corny.
It was so great. He was wearing a cowboy hat too.
I kind of appreciate that he's so committed to that bit.
I was to say, that's dedication.
Corey, do you work at Dueling Axes?
I do. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the thing that blows my mind about that place is that it's like an axe throwing bar.
Yes.
I've never been.
BYOB.
It's a BYOB axe throwing bar, which sounds like insane.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It works surprisingly well.
Okay.
You'd think it wouldn't, but yeah. Let's get into why we're here in the episode. What do you guys do?
In terms of the podcast, or
yes.
like, well, today I woke up and I ate some breakfast. I'm Dorian, and this is Max. And say something, Max.
Hello.
Yeah.
So you gotta get the tone of my voice down, I guess.
Yeah. We have a podcast about the history and culture of death and burial rituals and just how different cultures deal with death, which happens to everybody. This is a little known fact about death. Everybody dies.
So it's easy marketing, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's easy to relate.
Yeah.
Well, for the most part, I mean, we've covered some really strange, unusual things on the podcast.
Death trains.
Yeah,
trains.
Yeah.
Or the Walmart cemetery.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Right. Max basically just does a bunch of weird, like, digging through the internet and finding all of these strange, stories and just accounts of how cultures and countries deal with death. And I sit and listen to it with, I don't know, just amazement, and I'm usually laughing and making stupid jokes while we do it.
That's
Which
awesome.
is very helpful, yeah.
Yeah. And you guys recently won an award at the Columbus Podcast Awards.
Oh, you noticed?
We did. Fancy. It was very fancy.
Congratulations.
We tried to.
congrats.
It was like a little spray painted mic, and we tried to record with it, and it didn't go well.
Yeah, we had to re-record. It was really frustrating.
Yeah.
It's not a real microphone. It's very deceptive.
About the origins of the podcast, really. Where did both of your interests in death and culture surrounding it begin? How did your backgrounds influence the way the show began, or how it's made now?
I mean, I guess it kind of was. I don't know. I kind of had the genesis of the idea, and it was really weird because I had always, I have thousands of Wikipedia tabs, favorited. And I will just read about weird stuff constantly. I've always been really into, like, cryptozoology, just weird stuff in the world.
What is cryptozoology?
That's like weird monsters and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Like
Cool.
Bigfoot, Mothman.
Okay.
The local
cryptids.
cryptids.
Yeah. Okay. I was trying to think of it. Cryptids.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. I've heard that term before. That's cool.
But, I've always really been into, like, weird cultural stuff too that people do. Like, I think sky burial was really brutal, and I think I remember reading about that in, like, one of those, like, Ripley's Believe It or Not books at, like, my, like, elementary school, which was probably too young to be reading about that. But it kind of started because I was wearing a Nick Cave t-shirt, and the album he had just put out was Skeleton Tree, and I went to a coffee shop, and the barista was like, "Oh, is that thing where they, like, in, like, Indonesia, where they'll cut a hole in a tree and, like, put a body in there and then the tree grows up?" And I was like, "Oh, no, man, it's just an album." And then I was like, "Oh, well, that could be kind of cool to talk about that stuff more." So I just, like, kind of posted about it on Facebook, and Dorian and I had known each other for a few years, and you were like, "Hell yeah."
It literally, the podcast itself started with a Facebook post that just Max posted as a status on Facebook. "Does anyone want to start a podcast about burial rituals?" And I just said, "Yeah." And we texted and went from there. So,
Yeah.
thanks, Zuck.
That's really awesome, though. It's good that at least like one good thing came from Facebook.
Yeah, at least. But yeah, I mean, in a different but pretty similar way, I grew up just with an interest in morbid things in general. My dad is a little bit of a metalhead, and I grew up like weirdly fascinated by horror movies and Iron Maiden and Cannibal Corpse album covers, and just like having a little bit of a morbid interest already growing up.
I remember that episode.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, that's just something that I think understandably for a lot of people, death and violence is like something you hold at arm's length and don't want to talk about. But for me, I just like, I grew up acclimated to it a little bit and found it interesting and was curious about it. Not in a sense of like wanting to kill people or anything like that. But it's
always
just
been fascinated with death.
But it's interesting that, you know, it's part of the human experience to have to, like, at some point we're all going to die, and like sometimes that's really heavy. But I don't know. It's been really cool having this podcast with Max and seeing the side of like how do cultures deal with that, and like how do people deal with that, and I don't know, you learn a lot about the world and people in it just based on how people handle that. So it's been cool. It went from just me being a weird little metalhead and having a morbid interest to, oh, you can actually learn things about people and cultures that you didn't know before and expand your horizons a little bit.
Yeah.
Cool. How did the logo come to be? Because I love that logo and I want it as a t-shirt so badly.
That's all your art, man.
Yeah. I'm an illustrator.
Okay.
And
cool.
Yeah, I already had a bunch of ideas swimming around in my head of what to possibly do. We had like a little bit of back and forth where I was like, hey Max, what do you think about this sketch?
Like 4 sketches.
Yeah, some ideas, and just landed on, it's, if you haven't seen it, it's a skull, and it's kind of flanked by different fungi and flowers that grow especially well on decaying biological material or dead bodies.
Is cordyceps in there?
Yep, cordyceps. Death's fingers are the little like finger looking ones in the front, which you know, those kind of fun, like drawing little fingers surrounding the skull. Can you see like the metal album artwork influence coming in?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anytime you get to illustrate something in a square format.
Yeah, I think that anyone who is an artist or illustrator tends to have like a thing or two that anytime they get a chance to draw it, like, oh, I love, I don't know, like SpongeBob fan art, or I love drawing cars or something like that. They're just like, you don't need to tell me more. I got this. Like, I've already got ideas. This is going to be a blast. And for me, that's like skulls and weird decaying stuff.
Cool.
Can you cuss? I almost said.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Go right ahead.
cool.
But not SpongeBob fan art. You know.
I love SpongeBob. It's just not. It's not my specialty.
You sure I saw that influence in the logo? No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I did grow up on that too, of like
Yeah.
Nicktoons and Ren and Stimpy and Rugrats and a bunch of gross, snotty, slimy stuff too. So that probably creeps in there to some degree.
Especially like, did you ever watch Invader Zim? Like, that's one of the big ones. For me that's like really. So just rewatching that, it's like that show was just gross. Like gross in every way.
Right.
Think about it, like some of the things that I'm like most impressed by in those shows is when they'll do like a like one of those hyper detailed like paintings.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like really brutal. And you're like, oh, huh. That's dope, you know?
Yeah, I love that.
SpongeBob had some of the worst of those.
Yeah.
Like super close-ups of people.
But something about the logo is that it is a pretty apt visual representation of what the podcast is about, because it shows this like, this thing's dead. Like, it is about death, but then it shows the positive upgrowth from under it and what that can cause and how that can feed what's around it. And I think what's important about what you guys do is that you view this from such a, we're just going to like joke around and talk about this and we're comfortable with this, you know? And a lot of people, namely like everyone else, is like horrified of death and doesn't want to think about it or talk about it, and it's just such a hard thing to process for so many people. And what you guys do is super important because it gives people a better perspective to look at it through. And I think that can really help a lot of people out, even with grief and things like that.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Hopefully it helps people. I mean, I kind of like it too, because I really like the really pretty like blue-green. That's kind of the main color. Because it's not like, we're not like a brutal, like super intense thing. And it's not it's not scary art.
Yeah, I made a deliberate choice to not just use black and red as the primary colors for the logo. But yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because that's the effect we want to have. And I mean, I think we've kind of found a little bit of a niche with the death positive movement, where the philosophy with that, it's like a big movement with a lot of authors and artists and also funeral workers and people in the death industry, where yes, this is an uncomfortable topic, but it is beneficial for us to talk about it and learn more about it instead of just sweeping it under the rug, because one of the worst things you can do is to just be completely unprepared when death happens and blindsided by it. Yeah. And one helpful way to deal with that is we can start talking about it. We can have like podcasts discussing, different methods of dealing with this, and
death cafes, which are a big thing here.
Right.
Just There's they started up in the idea of a death cafe started in England, but then the first one in the States was here in Westerville. It was like a suburb in northeast Columbus, I think.
Yeah, that's where I'm from, and I've never even heard of this.
Yeah, the Westerville Library has like death cafes where you go in and it's hosted by someone who's comfortable with the subject, and they just have coffee and cookies, and we'll just talk about, what death means, because for a long time you would die in your home with your family, and it's only very recently that's kind of been pushed to hospitals or assisted living facilities, hospice, things like that. So
that's cool.
Kind of bringing it to the forefront is getting back to our roots.
Yeah, check that out, because I already love the Westerville Public Library, but that's really cool. I didn't know they did that.
Yeah, they do a lot of cool stuff there. Columbus is just like, we are spoiled for choice with our libraries. Like,
and I think there are better libraries in the city too. I work for a different library.
I'm not trying to make it a combative issue. I'm sorry. I saw you kind of tense up, and I'm like, see, actually,
it's like totally goofing.
Okay.
And I'm sitting here like, the Westerville Library is the best.
That's why I was like, oh my god, I did not mean to insult you.
I'm like in this corner too, so I can't just get up and leave.
All right, I spent most of my childhood in the Columbus Public Library, the one on Carl Road.
Hell yeah, Carl Road.
Morse Road, Carl Road.
Yeah, it's good.
Carl Road.
Never did I think my show would foster beef between libraries. Twitter beef between sources of information. Oh my god. So speaking of sources of information, I wanted to ask, what are the best sources for death research?
So we kind of run everything off a Google Doc, which just has a bunch of ideas off it. But then beyond that, once I've settled on a topic, it's usually a lot of... I love Wikipedia, so if you can find like a Wikipedia page and then kind of follow the cited sources from there, I love that. Google has a lot of transcribed old books that are just scanned in.
Cool.
So we got a cool one from about the history of Columbus recently that we talked about in our latest episode, where it's goofy and it's written in this old timey voice and talks about the most physically powerful man in Franklin County and things like that.
What?
It's very goofy.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But working at a library, which I do, I'm pretty used to going through some information sources, articles. I use EBSCOhost a lot. I genuinely can't stress enough. If you live in a place with a robust library system, get a card, because there's usually tons of stuff that you can use online for free that you don't have to pay for.
Even just for high school or college too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I
cool.
mean, just the depths of the internet, man. Like, I remember doing the nuclear semiotics one,
Yeah.
which is where you have to warn people in the far future that there's like buried human waste, not human waste, buried nuclear waste.
Right.
I shat here. Like, watch out, guys.
It's just as toxic. But, yeah, the idea of like having to warn people in the future about nuclear waste. And, you know, there's just some old goofy websites where people are putting ideas forth about that. And like weird poems and like hostile land architecture. It's very, very cool stuff.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I want to say too, like, it's very valuable for me that Max does so much of this work up front. I mean, there's been some recent controversy about some podcasts like just not doing research, just kind of lifting things straight from documentary series that they've seen and letting other people's hard work kind of just be something they lift directly from.
Yeah.
We're this most recent episode coming out, I know we do a little bit more like specifically citing our sources, but that's really valuable to me, that like we're not just reading Wikipedia and taking it at face value, that Max does an incredible amount of work up front that's like, you know, it's very thorough and digging up frankly a lot of stuff that I think gets lost. I think maybe because people don't like to talk about death.
Yeah.
And part of it is this most recent episode has a lot of Columbus, Ohio history that I think, because it's 100 or so years old, it gets buried and not a lot of people know about it. You know, it gets lost in the shuffle of new condos and parking complexes being built.
Yep.
That's comes with a rapidly growing city that a lot of that stuff just literally gets paved over.
True that.
So.
Yeah. My the high school I went to is built over a cemetery as well.
Oh, which one?
Upper Arlington High School.
No way.
Okay.
Huh.
Yeah, like it's like they recently figured that out. Like
Oops.
they knocked down the original high school and they're building another one now right next to it. And they were like digging up the parking lot and they were like, "Oh, hi." Like they just found that shit.
Wow.
I don't know about that.
Max, get on it.
Like typing really quick.
Hit the books. That's crazy.
Furiously writing with a pen right
So
now.
now are they gonna? So because Upper Arlington's mascot's like is it Golden Bears?
Golden Bear, yep.
So now they're gonna redo it to that bear from Annihilation. That's
Oh God, I hope so.
Oh my god.
Hey, if you like that story, by the way, I'm trying not to just openly talk about our next episode.
Yes.
But, there are surprise body discoveries in a pretty well-known part of Columbus. So look
I'm
forward to
really
that.
excited to hear
Yeah,
this.
it's
very cool.
It was
Yeah.
really cool.
Just recite the episode here. We'll just publish it now.
Welcome to the Pre-Dead Boys.
I think with you guys, just the passion that you guys speak with when you're talking, I don't know if necessarily it's like just through your voices or at least just how you've written everything that you're putting out. Like, to me, it just becomes very clear listening to each episode how much work you are putting into it, just in terms of like you not just lifting it straight out of a documentary. Like, there's just a certain level of genuineness that comes out of it when I listen.
Aww.
No, I'm not just trying to like suck up like kiss ass here. I'm just like
thank
just
you.
like legitimately like
Yeah.
I've never in every episode had that thought of like, oh, I think these guys are just like looking up some real quick shit and just like I think the amount of detail that goes into everything you guys say, like I genuinely feel smarter after every episode I listen to.
Oh, nice.
That I've learned about something I'd never heard of before. Like
Yeah.
I'd never heard of a sky burial before. Like until I listened to the episode.
Yeah.
At least I've still never heard of a sky burial till you said it now. No. It just, I think, like, it's just very clear that you guys do a lot of work and, like, effort into it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Very sweet.
It's cool too. I mean, we're getting to the point where there's just a glut of podcasts in particular, but
Yeah.
with any creative work, it's like you have to love this. You have to love
absolutely.
like, you know, you can't begrudgingly do a podcast that's about a very specific topic, or, you know, create something that comes out on a weekly or monthly basis and just kind of not like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that means a lot to me, man, because I think a lot of the creative work I've done has been fun, but like not very fulfilling in the way that working on this podcast and kind of seeing like, yeah, there's a lot of cool conversations that can come out of this. It goes beyond just what Max and I are doing for fun. Like, we are having a lot of fun. It's really, it's really enjoyable every couple of weeks to get together and be like, okay, what are we gonna
Yeah.
what are we gonna talk about today? But yeah, just that bonus of this has a cool impact is, I don't know, it's really encouraging to hear. I appreciate that.
Of course.
I feel all warm.
I've heard every single episode personally, so I have.
And you will never get that time back.
I won't. I'm okay with that.
30 hours.
It was about 30 hours. Yeah. No, I will admit I played Minecraft and I listened to every single episode while playing Minecraft.
Man, that is the nice thing about podcasts.
You just do whatever else. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, some stuff, like, I like doing laundry while watching TV or listening to podcasts, but I can't do, like, I'll do some freelance design and illustration work, and that sometimes I have to, like, think and be engaged with that, and it's like, if there's a podcast on in the background, I'm like, wait, what the fuck are they talking about?
I can't, like, podcast and study. Like, that's not something I'm able to do.
Right.
And if there's anyone that's able to do that, please let me have you on, because clearly you're a special person. But
you got galaxy brain, bud.
yeah, something's happening there. You got a lot of tabs open up there. But so we were talking about that you mentioned the impact that you're making on people, and I wanted to ask, this is kind of a short answer question, but I'm curious, where are most of your fans located?
I'm gonna pop this real quick.
Oh yeah, are we gonna crack?
Cracking the topic moment.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I just wanted you to be able to edit it out.
Oh.
No, I don't want to edit that out. So cracking the topic moment.
Yeah, I think it's
right
a required sound with you guys on.
Sponsored by
Kroger.
LeKroger.
Dorian's much better at opening cans than I am.
Really?
Yeah, not good.
You'd think after so many.
We're learning.
Yeah.
You know, podcasts are a learning experience.
True that.
It's fun. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's good. What are you gonna say?
One of my jobs is for Kroger, and I've never even had their seltzer water. I never realized that it was, like, good, so I've never even tried it.
Yeah, you don't need to
Get that 3 for $10.
You don't need to pay a premium price to get a premium seltzer.
Yeah.
There you go.
I think that the majority of the biggest percentage that we see on analytics is still Columbus.
Okay.
For the most part. But every now and then we'll have a day where it's like, Hungary has the most listens today. Or London.
Someone in London just went through 8 episodes.
Right.
Okay, sorry, this is fucking stupid, but you said hungry, and I thought you were just having a squirrel moment and you wanted food.
I'm hungry.
I thought you were just most of them are in Hungary. Like,
no, the country of Hungary. And Sweden is one that just keeps popping up randomly every now and then. And it's funny because I saw that and was like, hey, Max, I think we got to find a new hosting service. I think Audio Boom is giving us some bad data.
Yeah,
there's no way we have listeners in Hungary. And then on our Facebook group, someone will post like, hey, I love the show. I'm listening to this episode and I shared it with my husband and all this stuff. And we're like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Where did you come from? How is this possible?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We still have the kind of what's typical for Columbus is like a very ferociously loyal like core of people who love us and like are spreading the word about our podcast, which is like really flattering and amazing. But
given those Ko-fi donations, am I right?
Yeah. One of our friends is like a total goofball and was like, here's $30.
I'm like, what are you doing?
Like, Evan, but you can't get that money back. We're gonna keep that.
Yeah. This isn't like, it's not an acorns. You're not investing.
Yeah, little peek behind the curtain. It might look on our Ko-fi page like we're getting some really crazy donations from all over the place, but really it's just our friends making poor choices a lot of the time.
I think it's more like an REI and they're trying to get dividends on us.
Yeah.
They'll remember years down the line when you guys are like the biggest podcast in terms of history, everything. They'd be like, hey, do you remember when I sent you that $30? Think I can get some back?
I mean, we won't ever forget like people's generosity like that. That's really amazing. Yeah. But with him in particular, it might be like, you invested the wrong way, bud. Like, this went straight to our heads. We just like put this toward our candy budget.
We don't eat a lot of candy. We're not a big candy.
That's true.
I don't know. I'm not a big candy person. I don't know.
I am not either, unless somebody ships it to us from Poland, and then I'm pretty stoked on it.
Pretty into that.
Wait, did that happen?
Yeah.
Yo.
Okay, so this is fucking sweet. Max is getting married soon, and
Congratulations.
By the time this comes out, I'll have been married, so...
yeah, true.
Post
True.
congratulations.
Woo! But one of our friends, Isaac, had the idea of like, hey, I think it'd be really cool if we pooled money together and got Max a piece of taxidermy to surprise him for his bachelor party. And by the way, we did not ask Max's fiance beforehand. Fortunately, she is cool with this. So, but yeah, he came up with that idea, and we were talking about it and kind of thought like maybe we can message all the people who have like become fans of the podcast and reached out to us and like ask them for money to help us out. And I just spammed out a bunch of messages to all of our Twitter followers and people in the Facebook group. Excuse me. I had to cough and burp at the same time. And yeah, we raised a couple $100
Jeez.
from like people Venmoing us, and I was just like, this is crazy. It was just a really cool testament again to like, yeah, they're not bots from Sweden. Apparently people like this show, and it's crazy to us that's happening. But one person in particular from Poland just wasn't quite comfortable sending money through Square Cash or Venmo, and I was like, yeah, that's fine. And she said, can I mail you money instead? And I was like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of thinking, like, I don't know if that's easier, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I'll look at some cool money.
Yeah. But she ended up sending some zlotys, which I think that's how you say the Polish currency. We don't.
Oh yeah.
We're still learning this, but because shipping was kind of pricey, she just decided I'll also throw in some candy. So we got like Polish Kit Kats and
which were incredible.
What was the
Panna cotta? It was like a panna cotta in chocolate.
Yeah.
Which was really neat.
Raspberry cream chocolate concoction. But yeah, that's like the awards are nice or whatever, but like the fact that somebody shipped us candy from Poland is still kind of
it was
like
very, very cool.
That's
awesome.
That's kind of a personal highlight for me of like, yes, we've made it. We're getting shipped candy.
That's cool.
Does it feel good, like, knowing that you're getting that? I mean, I know obviously it does, and like you said, that it feels good, but like, I guess, just trying to think of how better to word that, sorry.
Is it going straight to our heads?
No.
Yes, it is. I'm glad you
Not
asked
that. It's just more like, does it kind of validate your decision to start this up when you hear like how receptive people are being to it, and they're, like, clearly a lot of people like it, they're listening to it, like they liked it enough to send you money and candy, and like, does it just make you kind of feel good about like that initial decision that you made to like start it,
Yeah, it really makes I think both of us kind of appreciate what we've done, and we've kind of, I feel like we've made, we try and be like nice and engaging and cool, and
we try so hard to be cool.
it means a lot that people like care about this, and that people like are genuinely interested in this, because I feel like sometimes with the volume of content that exists in the world, it can kind of feel like you're screaming into the void at points, but one of the first like things that happened abroad was this podcast from England reached out to us, and they were like, hey, this is super cool, and like, we'll talk about you guys on our podcast if you want to talk about us on yours. And it was like, oh, that's rad.
Yeah.
And it's kind of progressed from there. It's been very neat.
Yeah, 3 Dead Kids podcast.
Yeah.
Shout out to them.
Nice.
Yeah, and like, you and I have talked so many times about how like we would be doing this regardless. It's become so much fun, and we're interested in the topic, and it's such a crazy huge bonus that other people enjoy this too.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable, but I think that like it's still not really the primary motivation, because it's still just so much fun for us to, learn about weird cemeteries in supermarket parking lots, and like a guy getting buried with his motorcycle, and all these wild things are just like so interesting, and it's so much fun for the two of us to just get together and do it. So, yeah.
Awesome.
That's really awesome.
We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We'll be right back. Do you like what we do on Gab Street? The best way to support the show is to tell people you know about it, either through social media or word of mouth. Interact with us on social media by way of Instagram at Gab Street Podcast and on Twitter at Gab Street Pod. We now have a Discord server, and the link in our bio on Instagram has a button that acts as an instant Discord invite to it, so if you tap on that, you'll join it immediately. Do you live in Columbus and make music? Please submit your tracks to us at gabstpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll feature your music in between topics with your name in the description of the episode if the episode isn't already an interview of another musician. Thank you for listening to the show. It would be impossible to convey to you how much it really means to see your support. Back to the show. We're back. Welcome back to Gab Street ASMR. No, we're not doing that today.
Welcome.
We're having... Set the seltzer can next to the microphone with the bubbles. Oh. That was wonderful.
That's really obnoxious.
That was a great performance. Thank you. I have a quick question for you guys. This is based off of, at the time of recording now, your latest episode that has gone up. So, because of the dimensions of the room that we are currently in, will I also grow to 10 feet tall? Because I'm really hoping.
I mean, modern science says that you should probably be getting pretty tall. Because this studio
it's like a fish, yeah.
This studio is tall, so yeah, I think the rule still applies, but I'm no scientist, so what do I know?
I feel like it might actually pertain to ego rather than the person's actual physical size.
I see. I forgot about that, and I have a thing that happens where, like, right after we finish an episode, I like brain dump, and then it's gone, you know, and then I listen to the bit that you leave in after the outro.
Oh yeah.
When the new one comes out, and then other than that, I like don't re-listen to anything. So I was like, what did we talk about last? Like, what does that have to do with the size of a room? Is this like...
Yeah.
And then I remembered that it was right after we moved into the new place.
Yeah, because you're tall ceilings.
Brain dump is in just like whatever's on your mind, or what?
No, I just like forget everything I said.
Oh, you mean it leaves.
Living in the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just got to start making room for the next episode, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I don't do any editing, so I never hear it, you know?
Even I edit, and so I re-listen to everything again, but I still... And some of my friends have given me shit for this. I will still occasionally re-listen to an episode after editing it.
I do that. Yeah.
You can say that maybe I'm just a big narcissist and love hearing the sound of my own voice that much. But it does help, because there are times where someone will be like, oh man, that was crazy, that thing that you shared about, cryonics. And I was like, what? Oh, yeah, I guess we talked about that? Shit. So sometimes I need to re-listen to our episodes to like track all of the little details. But yeah, the end of episode goof is always kind of my favorite part about editing.
Yeah.
Oh, I totally forget everything that happens in all my episodes.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
as soon as they happen.
Okay, we're not alone in that.
Yeah, I go back and listen, like, mostly to skim for mistakes to fix later, right? Not just because I like myself.
Well, we don't make mistakes ever about
take-
anything, so...
That's why I do math homework in pen. You just don't make mistakes that way.
Yep.
I love math. I love math so much. I'm glad you talked about math. So what's your favorite?
What's your favorite math?
I love math.
Math Street. Welcome to Math Street, episode 35. It's great. We're back.
You can change your name to the Pre-Algebra Boys.
Oh my god.
I'll quit on the spot. Fuck that.
I'll start it, man. Start like a network. It's just me talking about math.
Pre-calc boys.
Oh,
That's a better joke, yeah.
I'm currently in a college algebra course, and it's pretty ass. Yeah. So
I went to art school, so I conveniently sidestepped all math after. Well, it was kind of frustrating because I went to community college for a little bit before starting, which I highly recommend.
that's what I'm doing now.
It's the best.
Yeah,
Get some
smartest
credits out of the way, because
Yeah,
when you get
oh my
those
God.
big fat student loans you got to pay later, you're like, well, at least some of it was at Columbus State.
Yep. There you go.
But I took a bunch of math courses expecting, well, I'm probably going to need some math because I wasn't sure what I was going to go to school for yet. And then I struggled so much. I flunked one class one math class twice, and had to retake it, and finally got it done. Then decided to go to CCAD, and then was like, oh, I don't need a single math credit here. Great.
Nice.
So I could never get those years of my life back.
But at least, anytime you're in a supermarket and you've got like that sort of, a bowling ball rolling down the hill this way, and
Yeah.
You'll understand.
Highly situational.
Yeah, some sort of incredibly situational event. You'll know what's going on.
The next time you buy 50 watermelons, you'll know exactly what's happening.
Well, you know how Max was talking about that brain dump earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened with me, and all math. It's all gone.
I love math. I'm a huge math fan.
That's because you're a dork!
Well, I mean, I started school I went to Ohio State out of high school, which was stupid because I was taking like Bio 101 courses, which were like less intense than the ones I took in high school, but paying thousands of dollars for it.
Yeah.
So good idea going to C State, I assume.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, brilliant.
Cougars.
But
Yes.
I am very stupid, and I took like college calc, 8 a.m. winter quarter, and lived off campus and was having to walk
my God.
15 minutes, and I went to like 2 courses and it was on like double academic probation because I just never went to my math courses. And then I quit engineering because I was like, I'm never getting that back. And now I log on to like Khan Academy a couple times a week and just do some math.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Good way of keeping it up.
I love math, man.
Wow. Speaking of school and time management, how do you two find the best equilibrium of fucking around and the goofs and research and actually focusing on that? Because you guys seem to have this like natural to a T balance during your episodes that just works perfectly, and I want to hear the background of that.
So I guess when I prep an episode, it's kind of weird because I will sit down and then like write like a script and then immediately deviate from it. Like I write it out so I know beforehand kind of how I want my train of thought to go, and what I want the thought flow to be. And then aside from the points where like I have you, Dorian, read something, I'm not reading, aside from like details, I'm not really reading from a script. But I think it helps kind of knowing like this is kind of what I want, the starting point, the first beat and the second beat and the third beat to kind of be as we progress through an episode. And then we've gotten really good at like the kind of look that you give the other person when there's like, step in here, or like, just vamp for a little bit or something. Yeah,
there is a lot of nonverbal communication that has developed between the two of us that I can't quite explain.
Yeah.
I've never really like consciously thought about it. It's just, it comes with doing something over and over again. You kind of figure it out. And one little piece of trivia about our podcast is we recorded 4 full episodes that we never...
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah.
What's in the vault?
You will never know.
Real clunkers.
Yeah, I want to keep up this mythology and mystique, like, the secret episodes. But to tell you the truth, it's just like
20 minutes and they suck.
Yeah, I mean, we were trying to figure out things like, do we have a script or not? Which one of us is going to have the script? Both of us? Do I do research sometimes? Fun fact, that's not usually as good as when Max does it. We recorded a pile of basically shitty episodes to figure out how do we do this. And we are never going to publish those. I think it was really helpful too, because I think a lot of people might create something and just feel like on principle I created it, so it's good, like let's ship it out. It's the internet, you can just publish anything. And I'm really glad we kind of got our bearings to some degree, because it's put me, at least, in a position where I feel good about all the stuff that we've put out. Our first episode is definitely more rough than the most recent ones, but we at least, like, it's still very listenable, I think. It's just like, I still stand by, like, okay, that's a good episode. You can go back and listen to Sky Burials and, like, it's good. It's got good content. Yeah. I don't have to apologize for, like, I'm sorry, we were, like, the microphone sucked and we didn't know what we were doing and, oh my God, I'm sorry. But yeah, I think just, like, having that moment of practicing and running through things and kind of figuring out, okay, this is what we're both comfortable with. And we were talking the other day, too, about we look up to a few other podcasts as kind of a template for our format. Mm-hmm. I love Last Podcast on the Left. It's, true crime and spooky stuff podcast that is really silly and they goof around a lot, but they are very research-based and very structured. And I think that's like, that formula works really well for us, where we definitely don't have the same kind of energy and personalities that they do. It's by Max and Dorian, not like those guys. And you've talked about how stuff works.
Stuff you should know.
Stuff you should know, that's right, yeah. That's another podcast that, like, they goof around and have fun, but they're still very, like, following a narrative.
Meat and potatoes,
Yeah, I think on the spectrum between total freeform guys chatting about whatever they want and NPR level production where there's like music underneath every tightly edited interview, we're kind of in the middle. Like, we found a good happy medium of like, this works for us and we enjoy this format.
And I think that, that kind of like, I feel like that kind of ties into your background in like art a little bit, because for me, like, coming up in high school and being very into like math and programming and robotics and things like that, like, if you screwed something up, it was like, it was bad, like you had fucked it up,
Right.
And I think being able to do a creative thing and to work with things that you mess up,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to do 3 episodes and be like, these aren't great, but we're learning from it, we're like taking those like ink blots and then turning it into something else.
Sure, yeah.
And there are a lot of points in every episode where we'll be like, that was a little weird. Let's walk that one back, and we'll walk back the last 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Of goofs or something.
Editing is vital.
Yeah. And I think being able to kind of learn on the fly, and edit the bad parts out.
Yeah.
Which we're getting tighter, and we definitely I don't think we edit out nearly as much as we used to. I don't know. I don't see any of it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the stuff that I edit out tends to just be like very obvious, like, oh, you had a coughing fit and almost like vomited a snake. We need to remove that. Whereas the first few episodes, there were a couple of cases of this flow of logic doesn't work, and I'm going to literally take this 2-minute section and move it back to before you saying something else. Like, a little bit of that, but now it's like, now I'm just taking out all the farts and burps. And oh man, yesterday, you can kind of tell from my voice that I'm fighting off a cold. Yesterday, everything that I read, I fucked up at least once. And then I get to the last quote that I'm reading, and the last 2 sentences, it was like every 2 or 3 words, I beefed it and had to start over. And I was like, oh my God, please, just let me finish this. So that's a good chunk edited out. But it's that sort of thing, less, meandering weird things that aren't funny.
Yeah, I think when you kind of learn as you go, and you're like, this feels good and it feels comfortable,
right. Mm-hmm.
You kind of get in a groove like that. And, I don't know.
Yeah.
What would you say the most important thing for listeners to understand is about your behind-the-scenes process? Maybe to give you leeway on something, or to just know, like, hey, we did this for you. Like, this is a lot of work. Anything specific?
I don't know. I think that I have been very... This podcast already started with me and Max doing something we thought was interesting and would be... we would want to listen to it. And so I've been so pleasantly surprised by the fan response and people connecting with us through the internet, telling us nice things about our show that every time it happens, I'm like, oh, cool. I didn't know, Yeah. I have no unmet expectations about this podcast. Part of it is because I held the bar fairly low. Podcasting is not something you should necessarily do to make money or to get rich and successucul. Yeah. There's a really funny article that Max and I were just laughing about.
Busting on for the past couple months.
Yeah, was it NPR that put that out?
It was a New York Times article.
Yeah, New York Times put out this article where it's talking about the overabundance of podcasts that are out there. Yeah. And they start off with quotes from these two podcasters that started a podcast and basically complained that they had to shut it down because they didn't have people calling them to advertise on their podcast.
Yeah, which is 6 episodes.
Yeah. And it was there was no theme or audience that they had already connected to. It was just, hey, we record us talking about just random things and we expect you to listen to it and pay us.
It's cornball, man.
It's and that attitude is just so gross. And unfortunately it's not exclusive to podcasting. We have a glut of podcasts right now, but I mean, I've been in bands where you play shows with other people who are bitter that their band's not more popular.
Man, I was talking to my barber about this recently. I saw a band play at Kobo, which is what Spacebar used to be.
Yeah.
And, it's a small venue. There were 20 people there. I was there because my friends were opening. This band had in-ear monitors at a show with 20 people, and they were busting on the sound guy for not bouncing. I was like, what are you guys doing,
Right.
It's just rock
star. So weird. Yeah, I think you can, if you create anything, you can go one of two ways. You can either go that route and be a diva and insufferable, and not only will people hate you, you will not have fun. Yeah. Or you can find a way to sustainably create something that you enjoy. And then if other people like it, you're bonus. I'm already doing this because I love it. So, that's where we're fortunately at. I've had a lot of creative projects, art and music and otherwise, that I've gone that first route and I've been disappointed in and frustrated and kind of worked myself up over. And this has been such a blessing. It's been so much more fun, and it's awesome that it's taking off to some degree. But yeah, at the end of the day, it needs to be something that you still enjoy doing, whether people care about it or not.
Yeah, I think you are much more of a performer than I am.
It's because I'm so full of shit all the time.
But you're I think you're much more comfortable about being in front of people. Whereas I I enjoy being around people and I enjoy doing social things, but I remember when I was doing my master's in history and I was doing work in that, and I really loved what I was researching and writing about, but it felt like it was very much for myself. I was just writing papers to write papers, and I think being able to have something where we're not putting ourselves as on a pedestal, it's yeah, we know a little bit more than everyone else does, and we just want people to come along with us. I think that's what we want people to come into our podcast with, is being I'm gonna learn with these guys.
Yeah, cool. We are one step removed from your friend just sharing an interesting article on social media, hey, did you see this? This is wild.
That's cool. So speaking of, stuff that you would want to share with people, I mean, you've shared a lot now, but what's been your favorite topic regarding death to research and to talk about? Or if those are two different things?
Oh, Max just pulled a knife.
I feel a little threatened right now.
It's I didn't think you were going to ask this question.
Constantly on
yeah, he's had that knife for a little while now, and it's just been his fidget spinner.
Yeah.
So I'm not alarmed by it, but it was kind of funny. It seemed like that's how you were answering the question.
I like
favorite topic, huh?
Yeah.
It's the new episode.
Doing the snapping down the alley.
Sharks.
On air deaths.
Let me guess what it was. Trains?
Was trains the favorite topic for you?
No, I hated trains. I think that was such a clunker. Yeah. Oh man.
Oh, I love that episode.
Really?
I thought it was really
I think there was so much joy
So
in finding
cornball.
something so interesting in trains.
Yeah.
I think my favorite was probably like the Long Now we did.
Yeah.
Which is how to warn people in the future that like, there's like nuclear waste buried.
Human waste.
Human waste. Kind of what it looks like to create art that's going to last not for a couple hundred years, but millennia, now that we have the materials to create super long-lasting things. I think that was my favorite to research and learn about.
That's cool. That's like our most underrated episode too.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people see it and they're like, what is the Long Now? That doesn't seem as interesting as Weird Cemeteries. Let's click that one instead.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one is like the most fascinating to think about just in the context of life and human history. And that's our most galaxy brain episode of like, there's some big stuff to think about in that one that's one of my favorites. I always go back to the Death in the Ocean episode too.
I remember you really
I love wildlife. And I mean, you'll see me if I see a dog or a cat, I will drop everything I'm doing to like go pet it. So that combined with like when we talked about whale falls and just there's so much fascinating stuff to talk about. And then we talked about burial at sea and all of the kind of political and philosophical things to draw from that. It was fascinating to me. There's still the effect of every time we record an episode, I feel like, that was our best one that we've done. I feel good about that. But that's still like one of my favorites just in terms of what we talked about and what I learned that day. And
cool.
And we recorded that in my bedroom in a very stuffy corner of my house.
It's very hot.
Yeah, I apologize.
I remember you talking about that in the episode, I think.
Yeah, that sucked. I'm sorry, dude.
Have you guys ever thought about interviewing dead people?
They're not great interview subjects.
Really?
You're
just kind of assholes.
Reserved. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what if you got a medium and you had them in here too?
Yeah.
And they were just.
Would you do a seance episode?
I saw Hereditary. I'm not gonna mess around with that.
Oh man, I love that movie. It's so good, but it's so freaky.
I think who's the football player that like was it Marshawn Lynch? And like every response he gave to an interview was like, "I'm only here so I don't get fined."
Yeah, that's Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's a little like that. It's just like silence. You just get radio silence.
Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
It's just something thrown across the room.
Yeah.
Marshawn Lynch is one of my like top 5 favorite human beings in existence, and I'm gonna like quietly dismiss the fact that you compared him to a dead person. So we'll let that one slide. We'll talk in the car.
We should on a carpool.
He actually just had a great interview with, I think it was Pat McAfee that just came out a couple days ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'll have to look that up. I love Marshawn Lynch so much. Like, my fandom in football started with him getting popular and ended with him kind of, like, not doing as much anymore playing for Oakland. But I'm, like, still love Marshawn. He's a hero.
My bad. So good.
I have a question for you guys that I figured would be a pretty lengthy answer. Get a lot of stuff out of you because it's rather controversial within your show.
Okay.
What are your boys' opinions on cryogenics?
I don't think either of us are
Not a fan.
into it. Not a fan.
Not a fan. The Ted Williams story was fascinating and amazing. So we've got some good history out of human beings playing with cryogenically freezing people. But man, if you freeze me after I die, I'll be so pissed. And I chose my words carefully there. After I die, like there's still the perception with cryonics that like oh, you're freezing a body while it's still kind of fresh, but it's like, no, the person's dead.
Dead, yeah.
You're freezing a dead body. Yeah, sorry, hot takes, I guess, but
Yeah.
man.
No, give me all the hot takes,
Cold takes.
please. Cold takes.
Freezing cold takes, yeah.
Cold hard facts.
Yeah, I mean, I am still open to having my mind changed on cryonics.
I did not expect to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to go into everything that we talk about with a little bit of an open mind, because we talk about weird stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, before we recorded an episode about sky burials, I thought like having my body picked apart by vultures sounded awful, and I don't know. At the end of it, I was like, well, I don't know. I've got some new information to deal with, and it'd also be pretty metal.
Yeah, I thought I was going to ask that, and then you guys were going to go on like a 30-minute tirade of like yelling and screaming. Like, we don't want to, we hate like trying to cheat death or something like that.
No, I mean, if you can figure out a way around death, more power to you, but I just think that that's like one of the most unavoidable facts of life, is that it's going to come to an end. And just the time and money and resources spent toward cryonics is really concerning.
True that.
Like, there's a lot at stake where if we're just spending all of this on something that's a waste of time and not going to work, and it's actively distracting us from dealing with death in constructive ways, I think that's why I feel so fired up anytime it comes up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Max, you can speak to that.
I mean, I think that's kind of a really interesting thing too, where like our own like political and like, you know, spiritual views kind of come into that as well, where it's like there's like just things of like, I don't think you can just like bail on death, man. And
Right.
It feels like such a waste when there's things here you can deal with and like ways you can make life better here and currently, and actually engage with that in a way that's meaningful to people, instead of, like you said, kicking the can down the road and, you know, ducking the question and stuff like that. But.
Right, and not to get too soapboxy about it, but you look at the world and there's a lot of good that like the tens of thousands of dollars being spent on cryonics research can do. Mm-hmm. And you look at the people investing the most in cryonics, and it tends to be like a particular kind of person that's
Rich
very
white
wealthy.
people.
Yeah. Rich white people, where, you know, like they're not just investing so much money in it, but it's like all of their life and attention is devoted to that and away from what I think, frankly, are very real problems that are not being dealt with sufficiently.
Yeah.
Just don't freeze your body. We don't have that figured out yet, and we probably won't. Just you are going to rot. I'm trying to not just use that as a catchphrase, but it's true. I mean,
you're gonna rot.
Yeah.
You heard it here on Gab Street Podcast. You are going to rot. It is a fact of life.
That's true.
Cannot avoid.
No matter how much formaldehyde you shove in, eventually.
Eventually. Times it's a long time. Life's a long time.
When all hope is lost, she pops a pill.
Speaking of having the wrong idea about death, what are some of the most common misconceptions about death that you've seen people have?
I think the idea that you're kind of stuck with going through a funeral home is a big one.
Yeah.
That like you have to be embalmed and you have to have everything go a certain way. That's a big one, because it's, you know, you can depending on how the end of your life is going, like you can choose to die at home, and that's perfectly legal. And I think the idea that death shouldn't kind of be a collaborative thing is pretty big too, you know? Like I mentioned this earlier, but for millennia, like the entirety of human existence, like we didn't have hospitals and you weren't being kept alive by machines and things like that and on meds and stuff. And I think that, you know, you would die and you were usually around your family, you know, because families were much more centrally located, and that was kind of how we were culturally conditioned to deal with death, was being around people you loved. And I think that now there's kind of this thing that it has to be kind of kicked as far down the road as you possibly can, to the point where it's like your body is completely exhausted and worn out.
Yeah.
And I think that's not great, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, like, this is maybe more from personal experience, just with having some family members recently pass away. I think that in America in particular, there's a little bit of an approach to everything, funerals and otherwise, that you need to spend a ton of money on it. Mm-hmm. That somebody needs to go to, like, a really cushy nursing home and, like, go through this very expensive process with the burial and embalming, and all of the coffin needs to be ludicrously expensive. Just like all of these things that are, it is an industry, and I understand that, you know, it does need to cost money to some degree, but sometimes it's just so absurd, like how much people are investing in something that's like people die. Like, this happens every day to everybody eventually, and along with kicking the can down the road and making it this really drawn out process of suffering, it's also just like this huge time and money suck for so many people. It was really cool. We recently got a message, I don't know if I shared this with you, but one of our listeners from Luxembourg talked about how in her home country they still do keep the corpse of someone recently deceased. Like, some of them will keep them with their family and keep them for a week, I think it was. Sounds completely bizarre to me personally, growing up with like a very westernized version of funerals where like you have the open casket, you see them, and then that's it. But, you know, it's a whole process of closure that they get that you wouldn't, you know, with the way that we do things here. So
being able to like grieve with that person present, you know. There's just a lot of different ways throughout human history that we've dealt with death, and there's a lot to learn from ways that are easy to perceive as really weird and maybe even gross or disturbing. I always go back to sky burials, like, that sounds really horrific, and we say on the episode too just how many people shot videos and uploaded them to YouTube, like, look at these savages practicing this insanely violent practice. But to Tibetan people, it's not. It's we are returning this biological material of our loved ones back to the earth in a very natural way. It's done with honor, and like they're presented in a very like honorable way to send someone off. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to learn from all of those weird things all around the world that freak us out. Yeah.
Cool. Do you guys have an episode recorded for when you die?
No. Hopefully that's not going to happen for a while. But I don't know. I mean, it's funny. We have someone who listens to the show who is a funeral planner in Canada, and she is doing a video series with some people like in the funeral industry of like, what do you want to have happen when you die? And if I'm completely honest with you, I haven't thought about it very much.
Really?
So that includes things like, what do we do with the podcast if I get like flattened by a Mack truck tomorrow?
Pancaked.
You know, is Max going to like take off and like make money off of my death with this podcast somehow? I don't know. I hope you find some way to.
I wouldn't know how to edit it.
I hope you find some way to leverage our podcast into like exploiting my death for financial gain. Like I give you permission to do that. That would be pretty cool, honestly. But yeah, I don't know.
LaCroix finally taps in.
Oh, now you want us. Yeah, there's a lot to think about with planning for death that, like, if I'm honest, that includes us thinking about the podcast, and like that would be pretty wild to have, like, in an event of one of us dying, play this episode.
Yeah. We've thought about doing an episode where we like kind of make our wills or something. Mm-hmm. I don't really know how that would work. I don't know if it'd be good, but
would that be a legal will?
There is a podcast called The Adventures of Memento Mori, where the whole thing is this guy basically going through that process of recording a living will and planning for his death, and it was really cool. I forget who like privied me to this podcast, but it's really cool. It's like a guy going through that process. But yeah, I guess you can record with audio a living will. That is like legally permissible. So
if it's the last thing you've said and it's like recorded and you're not under the influence, it's
well he recorded phone calls with his parents that like they're legally binding. Maybe not binding, I don't know if that's the right term, but
they're usable.
It functions as a living will.
Okay.
In a legal court of law. So
interesting.
We found a really good format for like researching a topic and then discussing it, but there's definitely possibility that we'll do some different kinds of episodes. We've talked about interviewing people a few times, and one of those things might include our living wills or our plans for what we do after we die.
Would you guys ever consider expanding beyond a podcast?
I am open to the idea if it makes sense, and we've never talked about this, so let me tell you my plan. I don't know. I mean, right now this just like it works really well in our lives. We've got other stuff going on and like jobs outside of this, and it's pre-Dead Boys is not like my primary source of income, so it's not like I need to make sure that the content creation train keeps rolling necessarily. But I don't know. Should we change it? Should we be YouTubers?
Well, I was gonna say it's really interesting because some people have been like, oh, are you gonna like write this stuff down in like a book or something? And man, I don't know how that would work because I feel like so much of the interplay of what we do is like having like real-time reactions and being able to engage with each other in the middle of a topic, and I'm not a good enough writer to pull that off. I don't think.
I don't think you guys should go to the YouTube route either because of a certain Logan Paul.
Yeah.
But we've seen how that goes. That was in very bad taste. I'm sorry.
He has refused
to fight Dorian.
Yeah, he's refused my challenge to fight. So he's basically a coward.
He's too busy fighting that other guy right now.
Vasily Kamatsky or whatever. The Russian slapping champion.
So he's fighting someone, that's all I know.
Trust me, there will be an episode of this show where I obsess about the Russian slapping championship, just so you know. Something I'm very into. They're hilarious. It's awesome. I think it's great.
This up. I'm not aware of this. I need to find out.
They're like these mountains of dudes that are just like lining up on different sides of tables.
Yeah.
And they will just like clobber each other until one of them gives up.
That's very cool. I respect that already.
It's hilarious. It's awesome, and I would pay money to go see it live.
The combat sports fan in me is giddy about this.
I was gonna say you would be very excited about that. I'm a total wimp. Like I have boxed with gear once. I boxed Colin, our friend Colin.
Yeah, you told me that.
And I got like punched once and was just like, oh god, I can't see anymore. And it was very scary, and I did not like it.
I'm wearing a T-shirt representing one of my favorite UFC fighters, Israel Adesanya. And Max is wearing not only a Clippers shirt, but his Clippers hat.
A lot of baseball going on over here.
He's the baseball, which is a sport with a lot of math, huh? A lot of stats.
Yeah.
True that.
A lot of stats.
Yeah.
And you did have like a death in sports episode too, where you talked about somebody dying.
That one.
Yeah.
I love that one too. A lot of baseball in it, and I still loved it.
Yeah.
In spite of that. Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know what it would look like for us to do different content or publishing, but I also didn't expect to be making a podcast. So time will tell. It's got to, I think, be something that people are somewhat interested in us doing, and something that works for like, I don't expect us to like start a speaking tour across the country and just be like, hey, just leave your wife for like a couple months. You're cool with that, right? Right. Okay, cool. Let's go. It's something that we got to talk about and see if it makes sense or if people care about it. But I am open to the possibility. Yeah. We'll see.
I think the thing that would be like one of the coolest just sort of evolutions of it is sort of like a kind of long form, like roughly 50-ish minute type thing where it's still similar to you guys discussing, but it's shot in like a video format. You have like actual like footage accompanying it and stuff like that.
And you interview dead people, not to forget.
I could totally see that as like one of those like types of shows that like, you know, like it pops up on Netflix kind of thing. Like it's like, you know, just like
kind of like explained.
Like, yeah.
Sort of. Yeah.
Sort of like letting you, because you guys already give such a good deep dive on everything, but sort of taking it to another level because you've got accompanying video, pictures, stuff like that. That's just what comes to mind when he says that to me.
Sure. We kind of kicked around how that would look for like a live show too.
Yeah.
I would come see that.
PowerPoint
Yeah.
If you do it, invite
that would
me,
be
please.
awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we man, Max's show notes always have fascinating photos too. Some of them very, very hilarious. So it would be great to find a way to like show that to other people too. But that also gets us into, you know, we're talking about possibly finding ways to monetize the podcast. And if we do that, we need to make sure we're not like making money off of other people's photos. And their work. Like, you know, we definitely want to respect that. So I don't know, we got a lot to explore with that, and especially something like video is such a huge production. I mean, you guys know from trying to just record video of a podcast. Think about the editing and stuff that Netflix's Vox Explain series needs to do to like make it that tightly edited and
so much.
All the animation and
not necessarily.
Stuff that goes into it.
Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry. It wasn't necessarily a really realistic suggestion. Just more like the fan in me wanted to see.
Yeah,
thing.
We did a commercial for this show like just like 2 weeks ago or something like that. Or no, I released that this past Tuesday, and it was a culmination of 3 hours of filming and 3 hours of editing, and it's 1 minute long.
Yeah, dude, video work and especially animation. I was like, I've done a little bit of animation work. I've got a friend, Sarah Schmidt, who's like a full-time animator and does incredible work. But yeah, just you spend months on 1 minute of footage, and a bunch of people who watch it and consume it are like, cool, more, give me more. You're like, bro, you don't know how much work just went into this.
And Shaq tries to steal it and pay you $500 for it.
Oh gosh, Shaq used to be in my top 5 favorite human beings, but
he's got this thing now where he's like, I recorded some stories from my life, and you can take it and animate it and do like a 1 minute animation and then submit it to my show, and maybe you'll have it featured in the show and we'll give you $500
if you win. If you get picked.
But then they're like, you know, TBS, is it TBS?
There's some network.
Whatever station it's on, like, owns the rights to your animation, and it's like,
it's not like they can't pony up more than $500.
Yeah.
Like 1 minute of professionally done animation. It's little tip for creative people. Anytime you see a contest and if you win you get paid, don't ever do it.
Yeah.
Like, do not do it. Hold your ground. Like, you are worth more than that. Like, break down how much work you're putting into it and like how many hours and what you think you should be paid per hour. And like, if you count it up and you're like, okay, I might be getting paid that or less than that, but I'm probably not going to be, then don't do it. Like, don't waste your time. It's such a crock, and it sucks that like big brands and people with money and the ability to pay you are just not holding out for it. Don't do it.
Good advice.
I'll step off my soapbox now.
No, I mean it's good advice though, because that's like one of those growing things that companies are trying to do. Like, I want to say it was Blumhouse did that, where it was like you make your own horror film, you send it in, they give you $50, and then they turn it into a full-length film that you have nothing to do with. And then there's like Hit Record, which has all their stuff going on.
Right.
Especially with like Beyond Good and Evil 2, the game.
Yeah.
People were like submitting all that stuff and you're getting like $5 for everything that they use. Like, crazy.
Huh. Yeah, when you participate in that, you help cheapen your work and the work that other people are doing. And if you hold the line and, hey, why don't you like spend that time and energy starting a podcast where you're doing what you want to do and cultivate your own audience? Like, there's all kinds of tools. There's Patreon, there's Kickstarter. You can like find the way to do something and at least try to like, you know, see if it will be successful, but you don't need to like give it away for $5 to a company that is making a lot more than $5 off of it if they use it.
Yeah. Don't undervalue your work, artists. For real.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no way.
commission high.
Yeah.
Always. I want to ask you guys about one more thing. You guys have a great intro song and outro song. Do you guys know Brat Curse or?
Yeah. I've like known them, just like run into those guys at shows, and I used to work with their drummer at this shitty startup a few years ago. We just crossed paths a number of times. I'm not like super close friends with them, but they're great. Brat Curse is like, they're just one of my favorite Columbus bands.
How do you spell
in particular. Just like it sounds, Brat Curse.
K-E-R-S?
C-U-R-S-E, like you're cursing.
Oh, curse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I always assumed it was K-E-R-S as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I
That
need
would explain why I
to
didn't find
enunciate
it.
better on
Well, no,
I guess.
You saying it now, like, that makes sense, but I always just assumed it was like brat, like I don't know, just like something with bratwurst, like bratwurst.
I mean, we're near German Village now, so I'm so assaulted with that all the time. Like, oh, Schmitz, you get this also. Like, it's all everywhere. So, yeah, I always thought that was like a German thing. Like
Yeah.
a Bratwurst.
I'll be honest, I did too.
Now, although that's kind of been a running joke that I think they call themselves bratwurst. No, but like Brian, I started out just like seeing bands that Brian was in. He was in this band from Dayton for a while called Astrofang, and they ended up like breaking up or whatever, and he started Brat Curse. And I started out just being a fan of the band, just loving when they'd play shows and festivals around here. I was like, holy shit, this punk band is awesome. And yeah, we like crossed paths enough that we actually met and talked a little bit and kind of became friends. And yeah, I said, hey, this is really weird, but I really love About Time. Can I use that for a podcast? Would you guys be cool with that? And he was like, yeah, gave us the go ahead for it. So
Cool.
Now they've put out an album that is incredible, and it sounds even better than their first album.
Nice.
And so I almost wish like one of those songs was our theme song, but it works out.
Yeah.
But yeah, you should give them a listen. If you like any kind of 90s rock and punk, like that kind of sound, they're very... I don't know. It's kind of, they remind me of another Dayton band, Guided by Voices, and like a few other punk bands of that era. They're awesome.
Yeah.
And really funny and great guys.
Yeah.
Cool.
The promo videos are very silly.
Yeah.
Nice. So if you guys like our intro theme song, that is done by Jay Rawls. It is called Time Tunnel. You can find it on his album 1998. I don't say that enough on the show, so I figured I'd do a little plug there.
There you go.
But,
Yeah, instead we'll just talk about someone else's theme song. Give no credit to the singers.
I'm sorry, Jay Rawls. I love you. Jay Rawls, you are a great man. I hope to have you on the show someday. But how do people find your show and listen to it if they haven't already?
We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, like Google Play, anywhere that I know of that you can find podcasts and listen to them. Just search Pre-Dead Boys. I don't think that there are other podcasts with our name, so
No.
Okay,
it's
Kind of nailed it. Yeah.
when I try to find it and Google it, it's pretty easy to find. But you can also just go straight to predeadboys.com. That's just takes you straight to our Audio Boom page where we host all our episodes.
Cool.
Pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Yeah, your SEO might get a little goofed with who we stole our name from, but I really doubt that that's going to be a huge issue.
Our name is a little bit of a subtle nod
It's a
to, I guess, to the Dead Boys, the Cleveland, then New York City punk band of the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if you know the story, but pre-dead is like a designation that obituary writers will have for... Sometimes they'll write an obituary in advance for a famous person who might be kind of close to kicking the bucket.
Okay.
And so it's a pre-dead obituary as opposed to a, dead.
I never knew that.
A dead person.
I don't know why I never questioned that at all.
Yeah, like how someone dies and they have like a
Yeah.
1,500 word.
Right.
Right. But yeah,
Immediately.
we are pre-dead
Yeah.
in that designation. So hence pre-dead boys.
All right. Cool. Do you guys have any shout outs to make to anybody?
I'm gonna shout out you for having
Really tall ceilings?
for having do you call it? Internal AC?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's
very
blowing
nice.
straight on you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
we've recorded in some stuffy corners of our houses.
Never
This is
anywhere with
nicer.
never anywhere with an HVAC system, I don't think.
Uh,
Your parents' place. We did an episode there.
yeah. I mean, my house has internal AC. It's just an old ass Quintonville home and not very strong, but we make do.
Yeah.
No, I just like anyone who's listening to this who has listened to our show or like has just said nice things to us or cared at all. It's awesome. We're still just like continually blown away. Like, oh,
Yeah.
people like this. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we would be doing this regardless of the fan response, but it's still mind blowing and like a total treat to see people care about this. And thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, of
very
course.
cool. Yeah.
This was fun, just gabbing about it.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
One last question. I
Yes.
want a T-shirt of the logo. Can I get it?
Oh,
Please.
It's like a red bubble.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out. I also have a printer in town that I really love working with. Upright Press does just anything that can be screen printed. They've knocked it out of the park on everything they've worked on, and I love those guys. And so I don't want to go the route of like just some online
Internet.
service.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like if we make any kind of merch, I want to make sure it's cool. I'm picky about that sort of thing. I don't want to go to like Vistaprint and just crank out stuff on principle.
I feel that.
If we sell anything, rest assured it's going to be cool. It's going to be a shirt that's comfy and like looks good. But it's going to take me some time to figure that stuff out. So patience.
Okay.
I will figure it
I
out.
will have patience.
Like you ever go to a show and you get a shirt and it just like is like the design's cool, but it like is a bad fabric.
Oh,
or,
yeah.
Like it's sized weird, and you're just like, what is happening? Why are you doing this?
Yeah, when I saw Culture Abuse the first time at Ace of Cups, they have such good looking merch, but it was like a heavy Gildan t-shirt that's anytime I wear it, I just immediately start sweating.
I've got a drug shirt that's like that.
Oh man. Yeah, those bands rock, and I understand being thrifty with the merch, but it sucks. I just don't want to wear that shirt because it's so heavy and I stink. I become a stinky boy.
Quick plug, you can find our merch on Redbubble. no lie. We're actually on Redbubble.
Don't let my pickiness about merch stop you from picking up a Gap Street t-shirt.
We've had one guy buy one, and it was Jackson Sloan from episode 7. Shout out Jackson Sloan.
Nice.
I think this is where you see us like our snotty music upbringing really shining through.
Oh yeah, our pretentious record store nerd coming through. I only like the first merchandise.
Now I did I remember when Spray Nerd was just starting out, they were doing shirts where they would just go to a thrift store and buy tons of like shirts from a thrift store, flip them inside out and print their logo on the inside.
Really?
Like I have a Spray Nerd shirt that's like it's just this like Spray Nerd Punk USA. But it's inside of a Hollister shirt. It's very silly, yeah.
Nice.
That's hilarious.
Nice.
So that's goofy.
Nice.
But
Thank you so much, guys,
Yeah, thank
for
you
coming
guys.
on.
Thank you.
It's been a great time. We're at an hour and 26 minutes. Awesome. Very
very
nice.
cool.
And if you're on the mailing list, you already know what next week's episode is. But if you're not on that mailing list, you don't know. So if you want to know, go ahead and subscribe to that. We will catch you next week. We're always here every single Wednesday morning, 6 a.m. sharp. Let's get on it. Catch you guys next week.
Woo!